We have to live with a product that's pretty mediocre in the beginning, but sort of seeing the big picture and now being much better than everybody else because we spent all that time, right? Because our pad always rates everything 1 star. We're not going to take it to.
And I think the potential is great because.
And so I guess you lie a little bit. That's one way to do it. But really what we're doing was selfishly building the data. We've democratized it so that any wine producer in the world, you make a great wine, it will be seen and we'll see, hey, this is a great wine, you should taste it. And we will not remove reviews and ratings at request.
Are you working on some secret new projects? Hello everybody, and this is the Top Arpad podcast, and today we have a very special guest, Heini Zachariassen. He is the founder and chairman of Vivino, which is the most popular wine app in the world with more than 50 million users and hundreds of millions of wine ratings, reviews, wine labels, lots of educational content on wine regions, grape varieties, and everything about the wine industry. Besides Vivino, he's involved in multiple different tech companies. And recently he started his YouTube channel and a podcast where he discusses tech, entrepreneurship, and all the sort of stuff. So thank you for joining, Heini.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet you. So I think we should start with the main question, and to help our viewers understand, maybe those who never used Vivino, what is Vivino?
Yeah, the whole idea of Vivino is to help people drink better wine. And you know, with the technology, like when the smartphones were launched, there was an ability to take a picture of a wine label and then connect that to data. And that's what we do. You can install the app Vivino on your iPhone or your Android, and you can take a picture of any bottle of wine in the world. We'll tell you exactly if it's good or not so good, how much it costs, where it comes from, what it tastes like, everything you need. And in many cases, you can also tell you where to buy it. So it's an app that helps you drink better wine.
Exactly. And when was this? When did you start it?
2010, right? So we started in 2010. The iPhone launched in 7, the App Store in 8. So like 2 years after the App Store had launched.
Wow! So that it was pretty early. And how did you come up with the idea? Have you been in the wine industry before that, or how did this idea come up?
No, much more of a product person, and really wanted to solve a problem. And really the problem I had was walking into a supermarket and looking at this wall of wine and thinking, what the heck do I buy? And I just couldn't understand why every movie and every piece of music and every taxi driver was rated, but not wine. So that was a little bit strange to me, and wanted to see if it was possible to build this. Definitely was a little bit tricky because there was no database, so we built that all from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. And I think today probably Vivino is the largest wine database, probably.
Yes, I would think so. We have around, I think, including vintages, like 13, 14 million wines in the database, and I think around 200,000 producers from everywhere in the world. And the most important thing here is really that the wines that have the most data and the most ratings are what people actually drink, because it's a community. So the data and the ratings become better and better for the more popular wines. Not higher and higher, but better and better data. So there's no doubt about every single wine that people have, we usually have a rating.
Exactly. That's the beauty of crowdsourcing this
Community,
information.
exactly.
Because those informations that are the most needed are probably the most available, and those wines have the most reviews. And yeah, I do agree that it is quite interesting that before that there was no such rating system for the wine industry, only the critics scores, which can be a little bit harder to understand for the general consumer, or a little bit too elevated. And
they can't be, and they're probably good because these people know what they're doing, right? The biggest challenge really is that they're not scalable, right? Meaning that someone like Wine Spectator or Parker, they would rate, say, 20,000 wines a year. Obviously the most hired ones, but if you compare their 20,000 a year, we get 100,000 ratings a day.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So it just gives you an idea about the scale, right?
Of course. But how do you cope with the difference of like proficiency or the accuracy of the ratings? Because obviously some of those ratings have to be like inaccurate because there are some objectivity.
Yeah.
Or what do
So
you-
it's a good question, and we talk a lot about this, but the way we deal with it is we do absolutely nothing. Every rating you see in Vivino is an average of the ratings that the wine has had. We always show how many ratings it's had, and like you say, some of them are a little bit too high, others are a little bit too low. But what comes out in the other end, we check a lot, and it's incredibly good. And it really, in the cases where there is an expert that has done it, it aligns, it correlates really well with them. It's just a little bit more consistent because it's more people that rate. So other apps, especially like restaurant apps, have issues because there's a lot of 1 and 5 star ratings. We
Yeah.
don't see that. Like when you go to a restaurant, it turns out you get more mad at a waiter than you do at a bottle of wine. So we have incredible good distribution on the ratings. So not that we're especially smart, but it's just the way it is. People rate wine differently than they do restaurants.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. So there are less outliers in
Totally.
the ratings.
Yeah.
Interesting. And obviously, yeah, the law of the big numbers, probably the higher rating number wines are quite accurate. And it is also very smart. You mentioned that it says how many ratings
Yes.
the wine has. So if you see a wine which is like very local, not very known, and you see that it has 3 ratings, then probably you shouldn't base.
Then it is what it is, right? You have to be a little bit
yeah.
more careful. But something to mention here, that the restaurant apps, the Yelps and the TripAdvisor of the world, they do actually put different weight on it. And not necessarily because they want to, but they realize that they have to because it's a little bit more inconsistent, their data.
Oh, I see. So there are like algorithms that like measure
Yes.
if there is a 1 star and maybe it was an outlier situation.
Or because ARPAT always rates everything 1 star, we're not going to take it to. No, they look at people and people that are good at rating something that is sort of more consistent, they will up them, right? Which is, I think it's okay if they have to. We just don't have to.
That's very interesting. I never thought about that, but makes sense completely. And so you started in 2010, and what was the first product? How did Vivino look at the beginning?
Yeah, not great. It was, so we've really had a philosophy to release early and get the product out because when you get it out there, you start building the data of the right wines and so on. So we really wanted to release early. So in the early days, it was basically like an HTML frame that had a very, very simple app an app with a frame with HTML inside. So it was super simple because we just wanted to get out there and start collecting data because I think we realized really quickly that the killer feature of this app was not how amazing it was going to look. It was the data. Whoever had the best data was going to win this game. So we doubled down on that, and it took us a while to build like an amazing app that looked nice and so on. Now it does, but it really didn't back then. It was really quite simple as we really doubled down on data.
Yeah, the minimal viable product as you talk about it a lot on your channel. And yeah, I can see that because as you mentioned here, the data is the most important part. And what was your strategy at the beginning to acquire this data? Because obviously without people knowing about the app and without any data on the app, it probably was pretty hard to start.
Yeah, I mean, totally. First so when we started, I think we went out and said, hey, we match around 30% of the wines out there. It was maybe probably closer to 10. So I guess you lie a little bit. That's one way to do it. And the other thing you can do is to try and do some hacks that sort of build the confidence, right? So if you scan a bottle of wine that we don't know, we had a team that looked at that wine right away. So often within minutes, sometimes within hours, we would come back to you by email or, I don't think we did push notifications back then, but by email saying, hey, Arpad, we've matched your wine. Here's what we found. People thought, okay, something happened. I'm going to give this another shot. And so do all these hacks that are not scalable until you build a scalable business.
Wow, that's very interesting. So you had like professionals or like researchers?
I would say, very basic researchers, I would say, right? Look at the label, research on Google, find whatever data you can, add it into the database, and then go back, say, hey, we found the wine. Is this it? Oh, good. Then maybe I'll rate it and so on. And slowly you're building data on that wine.
Wow, that is very interesting. And how were you able to do this? Did you already have investors at this point? And how many people are we talking about here, the
Yeah,
researchers?
we had quite a lot of people. I mean, tens of people actually doing this pretty early on, because
Mm,
it was not necessarily just about that situation. It was about building the data, right? We knew that
yeah,
once we got that new label in there, sure, we serviced that person a little bit extra, but really what we're doing was selfishly building the data.
exactly.
And yeah, and we got invested very early on, and that's, with these consumer plays, you have to invest quite a lot because these products are free and you're building data at the same time. So we needed money pretty early on.
Yeah, I see. In this particular situation, I can imagine. And so you get someone scans a wine, you get a new label, and then you are entering not just data, not just about that wine, but you already went into the like grape variety and wine region questions that
Exactly.
you. I see.
Yeah,
So
then you
it's
built like
like
a hierarchy. So our people were building like the sort of the data about the specific data about it. What grape is it? What region is it? All those things, name and winery and so on. But then the more opinionated stuff that came from the user, that sort of was put on
yeah.
top of that, right? But as soon
Mm,
as we did that once, we now have a picture of this wine. You usually actually need multiple pictures of the wine to be able to match it, or at
yeah.
least to do it well. So then you just keep building that and keep building that until it gets better and better.
Hmm. That's very cool. Just a quick question here about the questions, because there is one thing that I noticed, which is very fascinating for me, and I always wondered how is this uh, going on, that for almost every single wine that I look up, the best quality image is from Vivino, and the on the bottom of the wine bottle it says Vivino, so it's from the site. You have a studio where you take pictures of these wines, or what is
Yeah,
the
this was a
process?
huge project for us. So when we started selling wine back in 16 or so, we realized we had not quite a billion, but maybe at that we have 2 billion pictures of wine bottles now, right? But
Mm.
but we maybe had 500 million bottles, and we realized at that point that these pictures that we had, they were not good enough. They just weren't good
Yeah.
enough. I mean, I'm going to buy a wine. It looks like somebody's holding it a hand at a restaurant. That's not going to fly. So we started again. It's all about priorities and doing the most important things first. So we looked at what are the most scanned wines in the world, and we started sourcing our own pictures. So we went from scratch to all the producers in the world, found the pictures, cleaned them up, and then put it into our
Mm,
database. So they're all sourced from the producers.
I see. Yeah.
And again, it's about starting at top and finding the most scanned wines, and then you work your way out. But a huge project that we still do, and we started that 6 7 years ago. We just keep doing it.
Okay, so it's still growing and growing
Yeah.
every single day. Yeah, that's great. So coming back to the previous question about building the team, maybe a more general approach that you would give as an advice for young entrepreneurs on building teams at the beginning stage. What was your strategy at this point?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a really good question because it all comes down to the team, as you can imagine. I sometimes look at it as a let's say it's a pizza, and once if you're a solo founder, the different jobs you have to do, that's the full pizza, and then you have to take pieces out that maybe someone else is better at than you are, and then hand it
Mm,
over. But in the beginning, if you go from 1 to 2 people, then you have to find a relatively big slice, which means you're looking for sort of broader people in the beginning.
mm,
But as you get bigger and bigger, the slices become smaller and smaller, and people get more and more specialized. I just like to think about it like that, because the co-founder or the first employee, they are going to be very different than employee number 51, because at 51 you can really hire a real specialist, and you might not want that as employee number 3.
wow, that's a very good way to think about it. I think
I think it
this should
helps. Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps a lot because obviously at the beginning you need generalists because
Yes.
you can't really do it other way. Wow, that's great. This should be a quote.
The pizza quote.
The pizza quote of hiring. Yeah, that's really great, and it helps a lot for people. And what were the biggest challenges at the beginning? I know that you had to make some tough decisions, moving to the US at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, I think that was definitely hard. I look a young family back then. I had kids that were teenagers and younger. That was definitely very, very difficult. But at the same time, look, we knew that most consumer apps and consumer anything, if you want to like be a global winner, you're probably going to be in the US, and you might even be like within 30 kilometers out of San Francisco, right? If you look at your app, your phone now, and look at the apps you have on your phone, holy shit, 80% are within a few kilometers of San Francisco, right? So it's pretty
Yeah,
wild. And I think that helped us a lot. From a from a product point of view, it was really the data. There's a reason why nobody had done this before. It's really, really hard to build such a big data set from scratch. And people feel, okay, it is a good data set now. But you have to have this mentality of improving the product like 0.1% every day. There are no silver bullets. You just keep grinding and making better and better. And over time, it really compounds and becomes very, very strong. But it takes a while. You have to have a certain, sometimes we say, look, if you're a baseball player, if you're a really good baseball player, you hit 30% of the time, which means you have to be really good at losing and missing
of course.
as a baseball player. And we did a lot of that in the beginning. We have to live with a product that's pretty mediocre in the beginning, but sort of seeing the big picture and now being much better than everybody else because we spent all that time, right?
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, I think that it also helps a little bit the fact that it is quite easy to measure, so you can see the progress
Totally progress.
all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. But slowly, right? But slowly, slowly, slowly.
Exactly.
In the early
Exactly.
days, we looked a lot at match rate, and look, we're matching 67% now. We're matching, and then when we hit a high number, we realized the accuracy was really bad, and then you have to focus on accuracy, right?
Of course, of course. When did the biggest growth or the growth start to happen? When was your biggest
Yeah,
break?
yeah. I think so. It basically took us 2 years to get a real breakthrough. So it was 2 years with a very, very low number of users. And then when we got 2012 to 2013, it just totally blew up. And sort of a theory around that is that when the product starts working more than it doesn't, people give it a shot, right? So once we hit like 60, 70% working, people said, oh, there is something here. And another, I think, important thing in many categories is you don't have to be a good product, but you want to be the best product, right? So what that means is that if we match 60%, that it really isn't a good product. But if the next one is at 20, you're doing pretty well. So just make sure you're ahead of the pack all the time. It still doesn't have to be an amazing product, but it's probably the best one.
Yeah, yeah, but and also the competition at that point was quite big. I read an article
Yes.
today that there were already like hundreds, I think maybe 500 wine
Yeah,
apps,
600.
which
Someone
was
said, yeah, exactly.
600. Wow, which was very, very surprising for me because, and as you mentioned, that the most important thing is to be on the top. For the past few years, people don't even know other wine apps.
Exactly. But the thing is also is that once you are on top, that's where everything sort of floats, right? Which means that the investors are going to look for you, and then you get more funding, and then you get more users. So once it really starts spinning, it's hard for people to catch up. So that's sort of the strength of being on top.
Yeah, the exponential growth
Yeah.
when it starts then. And especially as we already mentioned multiple times, the data it
Yeah.
is very
Totally.
hard to catch up with. Even if you in maybe other categories there are some viral explosions, some app goes viral and everybody jumps on, but here if you don't have the data then
It's hard. It's hard.
extremely. Yeah. And how and when did you start to monetize the app, and what were the main logics?
Yeah, so we started in 2016, which means it's many years in. But the thing we could always say is like the how to monetize this is pretty obvious. Like you drink a bottle of wine, now you can buy it too. That's amazing. And all the everyone, and including ourselves, we really bought into that. And it went really well. I think like 2018, we could say, okay, this is working. And then 2020, we really sort of, when COVID started, we really grew incredibly fast, over 100% growth in sales and so on. So
Wow.
that was just wild. Yeah, so that's been quite a journey. But we also landed after COVID. We can get back into that at some point.
Yeah, and how does the buying through the app works? So what is the exact process?
Sure. Yeah. So we integrate with these partners that can ship to people
Yeah.
throughout the world. In Europe, it actually is more and more cross-border, meaning in France, you will not only see French merchants, you'll see others too, and we ship from other markets too. US, it's US to US. So far, it's a little bit too complicated, but we have like 600-700 merchants on, and they're integrated into the app. And then it says, okay, this particular wine you're looking at, can it ship to wherever you are? If yes, we'll show a buy button, and then you can buy it, and everything goes through, and they ship the wine to you. And then we charge them something for that.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that makes sense, and it is a great way to do it. And you also do ads, right?
Yes. So that started actually not too long ago. So we've had these sponsorships of wineries for a long time, which means the wineries can sort of position themselves a little bit better inside the app. So when you scan a wine, they'll get a video, they can tell the story about it. So for the user, it becomes a richer experience. And for the winery, they get to position that. So that's a paid product we have. And now recently we also launched advertising when we launched the paid version of the app too.
That's interesting. I didn't know that you also had partnership with these wineries. And how did that work? Did you reach out to specific wineries that you thought that maybe would be interested in it, or what, there was a platform or a way for them to connect?
Yeah,
with you,
it's a little bit of both, but mostly we reach out to them and say, hey, we have this product. We can see how much activity there is. A part of this product is also getting some data. So we will never sell data on our users, but we can tell you, look, how many people are drinking it in Florida and how many people are drinking in this city and so on. So people love that data too.
Exactly. I can imagine that for wineries, it must be very very valuable. Oh, actually, I also own a very small family winery.
Very cool. Is it on Vivino?
In Romania? Not really. There are like a few scans that from like friends and from the local community. We are at the beginning stage. I mean, like,
well, everyone starts somewhere, you know that.
Exactly. And actually, it's not like very new, because it was started by our family, so it has already a few years, but it was very local in the western part of Romania, in Transylvania. We have multiple grapes. We have the Hungarian Királylánka grape variety. We have Muscat. And we have some like international red varieties as well, but we focus on these Hungarian varieties. And actually, there is a new grape variety that probably needs to be on Vivino in the future. Historical Hungarian grape variety, which disappeared for like a few hundred years, named Bokator. And there was a project in our area. There is a Bokator community. And because there was this legend that there is one last Bokator grapevine somewhere in southern Hungary, and they started researching, and they actually found that there was really one grapevine, and from that grapevine they took the cuttings, and the project started in 2015. And at this point, we have quite a few vineyards in our region, and we made the first Bokator wine in 2019. So
that's cool. Is it good?
To grow. Yeah, actually, it's a very interesting challenge for us, because it was like 200 years ago when it disappeared, and from the notes and from the data that we have, it's lacking, so it's not very accurate. So it's a great challenge for us to discover the potential and the styles. What should we do with it? Obviously, the wine industry has changed throughout those 200 years, so it's a very interesting game. Yeah, but it has great potential, and we already tried some different approaches, different winemaking strategies, and it's very interesting. So
that's cool.
Some new data for
that's exciting.
Yeah, so that's the Bokator project. Okay, so you mentioned the advertisements, the sales, wine sales, and now you also have the Vivino Premium. When did that start?
We launched that mid last year, mid
Mhm.
2023, and it's going really well. We have around 80,000 paying at this point,
Oh
which we
wow.
think is pretty impressive. We're only like not a year in, but like 8-9 months in or something. So we're very happy with that.
Wow, that's great. And what is the price of the
5 euros a month or 50 euros a year,
Okay.
which is nothing
Yeah.
compared to how much wine people spend on wine, obviously.
Yeah, so that's the good part of the wine
Yeah,
industry, that it is quite a high margin market, and there are some quite high prices that people are used to,
yeah,
and all these services can it's not a huge problem to ask for a price. And obviously, besides wines being quite expensive, there are a huge culture of wine magazines, subscriptions, and everything. So
totally.
people are, I
People
think,
are willing to pay, right?
yeah, for great information
And
on
they would
wine.
never admit that it's expensive. They would say it costs a lot of money, but it's not expensive.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I totally agree. And it's very cool that as from the beginning you integrated it and made it like a little bit of wine education as well. So it's not just helping the consumer choose a wine and that's it, but trying to build wine culture.
Totally, totally. Yeah, we really built this product for like what we call the casual wine drinker, right? Not someone who has 10 books on their shelf already, but rather someone who needs sort of more quick information and just to understand it better. And that's the group we really want to help.
Of course, but I think at this point maybe the like wine professionals
Oh, they use it
can,
too now. They might not admit
yeah,
it, but they do.
of course, of course. But what I wanted to say that is that in some cases maybe they even can find some new information, some new specific grape varieties like Bocator soon,
Let's say Bocator a few more times.
yeah, yeah, to increase. Maybe some of your researchers is already
Yes, yeah, they're
researching
looking at it
and
now, probably.
exactly. So for these very specific niche things, I think even professionals can look it up. I
Yes.
mean, I wouldn't call my. I mean, yeah, I am a wine professional. I'm a winemaker, and I also use it for this reason. Specific wine regions all the time. I just scan it. If I see something very unusual or new, usually I can find some info on.
But also usual people in the industry, they would know parts, right? So you might know Romanian wine really well, and others know left bank really well. They might look up right
Yeah.
bank of Bordeaux, right? So nobody knows all the wines in the world, but Vivino has a lot of data they can use when they travel and move around the world.
Exactly. Yeah, there is a tendency of being specialized in
Totally.
some regions, and also besides the educational part, there is a little bit of gamification of the wine industry as
Yes.
well, which I noticed. Especially wine professionals or people who taste a lot of wine, people are very proud of being first in a category in their country,
Yeah.
and all those things. How did this idea come up, and what is your...
Yeah, originally it was just to motivate people to use the app, right? And I guess that has worked too. I'm sure that has worked too. But it works on certain kinds of people. Some people do not care at all. Other people don't care a lot about this. Meaning, when we get the most, shall we say, feedback or complaints about, it is that the algorithm is not. Someone's trying to hack the algorithm. They're moving in front of me. They shouldn't be there. All kinds. So people get super competitive. We're trying to make it as just as we can, but it's not perfect, I guess.
Wow, that's a little bit funny that people take this so seriously.
Oh, they're very serious. Yeah.
And actually, now that you mentioned, I can imagine that if this is someone's goal, it could be cheated, right? If you just scan wines that you didn't even taste and you just write reviews. Did that happen, or did you notice tendencies like that?
Oh, all kinds of stuff. So it's always like an arms race, and we have to do these things to make sure it's as fair as possible for the people that actually really contribute.
That's quite funny, but probably
Yes.
very, very annoying. But what could be the reason? Probably some wine critics or writers. This can help them to reach more people, or to.
I think just some people are super competitive. I'm not sure there's a specific reason why, but they just want to win. and then they'll do whatever it takes. And if it takes a little bit of, well, they probably don't think it's cheating, but sort of creative ways of doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also in the gamification realm, there is this segment where you can try new grape varieties, and
Yes.
that I really liked. I think
Yeah,
that
we
can
have
help
these
lots
wine
of
styles.
new.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that can help lots of beginners to enter new wine regions, grape varieties, and to really start learning about wine. What is your experience with that?
Yeah, exactly. No, people love that too, and then you can see how many wine styles you've tried and how many there are totally. We only started with a few hundred. I'm not even sure how many there are now, but it's quite funny. Even I sometimes, this is a new one. You have never tried this wine style before, and I think that's always fun. Yeah, people are very much into that. It also means that we can put some data together about that, and so people can learn more about these wine styles.
Of course, I love that. I think these small upgrades that you added up throughout the years make the app a lot more valuable for the wine community. I love it. And beside this, there is another aspect of the app, this social app.
Yeah.
Now you can have followers, and you can comment on each other. How does that work? This is probably one segment that I don't really use in the app, and I'm curious if it's popular. Are people like really checking their friends' wine reviews, or
I'd say when we launched it, we thought it would be more popular than it is now. But there's a certain group of people that really are into this. So you could say, hey, if not enough people use it, you should take it out. But there is a small group of people, I'm not going to, like, let's say it's 10, 20%, which contribute a lot. And for them, it's very important, right? So it is, I would say, not a mainstream feature, but very important for a group of people that are very important to the Vivino community. So that's why it's there. I myself look at it sometimes, but not always. But some people love it, and that's why it's a part of the experience.
I see. I think you should look into this and maybe think about it, because I think it should have a lot more interest, and I think the potential is great, because we are in this wine social media segment. We have like 500,000 followers on Instagram, and especially on Instagram, it is extremely popular for people to write wine reviews and to read these posts. There are lots of wine influencers taking it's almost exactly the same as Vivino, taking a picture of the wine, posting it, and writing a huge review, and people love it. So I don't know what is the. I think there is something that prevents this to click, but I think
it could be. You're right. It could also just be that the people you have on there are the same people that love it on Vivino, right? So there's a big group that doesn't like it, but then there is a group that's big enough that loves it, right? So maybe you just hit that audience well, but it could also. But there's always room for improvement. Like, there could be a way that we could do it better, and then suddenly it just pops.
Is there a text limit for the length of the reviews of the wine reviews?
I'm sure there is a limit, but I think it's pretty long. I'm not sure what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that was my thought. If maybe for like professionals or people who are passionate about it, if they can't express themselves.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's been it. I don't think that's been it. No. You can take multiple photos too, and so on.
Yeah. I see. That's very cool. What did you notice? How did the app change the wine industry? How did the wine industry react to Vivino?
I think it's a good question. I think in the beginning it is like, whatever, a new app, right? But what I'm very proud of when it comes to the industry is that everyone gets a shot, right? If you build a great Romanian wine and get just a little bit of distribution out there, people will rate it, people will see it and say, hey, this is an amazing wine. And that just didn't happen before, right? It had to be some kind of important, wine spectator or someone come by and rate it. And this is, we've democratized it so that any wine producer in the world, you make a great wine, it will be seen, and we'll see, hey, this is a great wine, you should taste it.
Of course, it is very democratic. And one thing that I usually do which I would suggest for other peoples to do on Vivino, is not just to check the rating, the average rating of the winery, but by checking the number of reviews of the winery, it can tell a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, especially for, I mean, not especially, it is just as good for big wineries, but it's very interesting to check for smaller or local wineries and to compare them and to see some wineries maybe has a huge hype and huge marketing, and it seems that they are very popular, but when you check it, it has like maybe half or the quarter of the reviews of another one. So it's very interesting and very reflective of the state of the
it gives you an idea about how big the winery is, at least, right?
Yeah.
I will say though that we will rate more often if it's a better wine, right? So just to say, put something out there, right? If you drink a very inexpensive wine, maybe 1 of 1,000 is rated, but if it's something you can be really proud of, maybe it's 1 in 10, right? So just something to be aware of, that we know that happens too. But it gives you an indication of how popular or how much they sell.
Yeah, exactly. But I see huge rating numbers for like very lower shelf, cheaper wines. So
yeah, that's because the volume is insane.
Yeah, exactly. But if you taste like a Romane Conti, then probably you won't miss the chance.
I'll show you.
Exactly. That's very interesting. So, and what was the reaction from the wine industry? Did you receive some criticism or any...
I mean a little bit, but mostly. Look, more than anything in the beginning, they just weren't very interested. It's like, whatever, it's another wine app. But over time, we've really seen that we get more and more attention, and they're very serious about it, right? That everything is accurate and so on. So it's moved from being something that's, we don't care much about, till now being something they do care very much about.
I see. Were there any wineries who requested to not be on the app or any complaints?
It has happened, but I don't know how often it happens, but it's very, very rare. And sometimes you think like, I mean, this wine is not good, and it has a 2.8 rating on Vivino. Does somebody care? But usually when you have that kind of wine, nobody does actually care. Otherwise, the wine would be better. And it's just sort of some kind of fantasy label that somebody did in a marketing department. It's not a real wine that someone's passionate about, right? So
yeah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Based on all the data that you have seen and experienced a lot through this app, what would you suggest for winemakers, for me and for all the other winemakers who are watching?
Yeah, I would suggest that talk about Vivino, ask people to give a truthful and good rating to any wine they drink, and I think that could help. And see if the data is correct. You can send email to us and say, hey, something is inaccurate, we should let us know. There's an email called wineries@vivino.com. People can use to say, hey, something is inaccurate. We will not remove reviews and ratings at request, but we will change factual things, right? Something that's wrong, we'll definitely, we want the data to be as accurate as possible. So use it, tell your customers about it, and so on. I think that can be great for wineries.
Exactly. That makes sense. You mentioned at the beginning that you weren't really in the wine industry at the beginning. You came from the product side. What about now? Well,
I guess I am in the industry now, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So are you a wine consumer, regular wine consumer?
Oh yeah, I've always been that. I've always loved wine and always had a good amount of wine. So that I am. I'm also in the industry, and whatever ignorance, I might not know that much about wine back then, but I do know a decent amount about wine now, and get to tastings because people think I know about wine, so they will serve me the best stuff, which I enjoy, but I'm not sure I deserve it. But I drink a lot of amazing wine and meet a lot of amazing people. This industry is full of them.
Yeah, must be fun. What are your personal preferences? What are your favorite styles?
Yeah, I have to be careful with that, right? I should be careful with that. No, I love a lot of stuff. So I lived in the U.S. for many years, and I did drink a lot of California, both categories, meaning the Cabernet Sauvignons and the Bordeaux blends up from Napa. I love those, but I also really enjoyed the Pinots from California. I would say, if anything, I've moved a little bit north from there, and I really enjoyed some Oregon Pinot Noirs recently. I think they're amazing. But I love a lot of stuff. I also love champagne. So I enjoy a lot of different wines, I must say.
I see. That's very interesting that you mentioned. This seems to be a trend for wine people. At the beginning, people like more bolder, heavier wines, and it takes a little bit longer time to start to understand and appreciate more gentle, elegant wines like the Pinot Noirs and the colder climate wines.
You know what they say is that a wine journey can start anywhere in the world, but it always ends in Burgundy.
Exactly. That's a very good
There could be some
saying.
truth in that. Yeah.
Exactly. What do you see? What the future holds for the wine industry? What are the trends?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We look at this data all the time and see some things here and there. I mean, there are definitely challenges somewhere in the world. In the US, they're just not selling enough. I think they're, in many cases, their prices are a little bit on the higher end. They need to work on that. I think what we're working towards is transparency in the industry, meaning, look, we'll have data and ratings on every single wine in the world to motivate everyone to make better wines. We work also more and more in retail, which means shops are putting our data on the shelves and also guiding them towards buying, which means you should take these ratings very, very seriously. This is properly what people think about your wines. So take it very seriously. So I'm just hoping that people, will drink better wines around the world.
Yeah, that's what the data shows, that we are drinking less, but we are drinking better.
Exactly.
Which is
the global wine market is somewhat flat, but yeah, the younger generation is like you say, probably drinking somewhat less but better.
Exactly, and probably these the social media and Vivino and all these communities facilitate this progress.
We've also seen that in the US, and as an example, I think this might have been global too, is that the older generation has been very set in their ways. So if you like the Napa Cabernet Sauvignon, you'll keep buying a Napa Cabernet Sauvignon. But the younger generation is much more willing to experiment, probably based on social media and maybe Vivino and so on. So they're much more willing to experiment.
Exactly. Trying new things and getting into this gamification system to try all the wine regions and grape varieties. I mean, I don't really think that it is possible to try all the grape varieties, but with the major wine regions,
you'll be drinking a lot then.
Exactly. But this, I think, is very healthy for the consumers and the wine industry as well, because this one as well democratizes a lot. People are more motivated to try new things and to discover them, because without knowing about them, it would be quite hard to try them and go out for them. I think the biggest difficulty here is the availability, because lots of wines are very limited, like locally, which is
but it's also a little bit the nature of it, right? I mean, there is a vineyard, and you can make this much. I mean, also something that makes it interesting, right? I mean, DRC is a very limited production, and very few people get to try it, right?
Of course, maybe this fact facilitates tourism more, because some wines you have to go there to try it.
Totally.
Yeah. So the future of the wine industry, and what does the future hold for Vivino? Are you working on some secret new projects?
I mean, if it's really secret, I probably wouldn't tell you about it, but at least not while we're still on the podcast. But we keep working on all kinds of stuff. I think some of the interesting things are more personalization. We do quite a lot of that these days, and another thing that we're really focusing on is more value for money. So if you look at the app now, you can see a rating, you can see a price. We really want to see if we can help make it more clear if this is a good buy or not. That's something I'm excited about. That's coming within too long. So yes, always working on some exciting stuff.
That's interesting. And what do you mean about more personalization, like wine recommendations based on your?
Yes, but also whatever you scan will tell you right away is it going to be for you or not. And so we do that right now. We're making those algorithms better and better all the time.
Okay, that's very interesting. One thing that I wanted to mention, which is for me sometimes a little bit confusing, that all the scans go to the mine wines list.
Yes.
So it sometimes it's a little bit confusing because you just go and when you see a wine list or go to the wine shop, you scan a lot of bottles that you just want to see and read about. But sometimes it confuses me when I go to the mine wines section.
Yeah, it is something we debate a lot, and I totally get it. We're a little bit worried what happens if it's not the case. That, the one I scanned there, where did it go? So I think we need to find a way that's somewhere in between. So you have a list of all your wines, but maybe your default list is the ones you've rated or somehow engaged with.
Okay, yeah, that would help. And what do you have you ever think about a feature of maybe managing wine collections, because that is also very popular and there are quite a few softwares for that.
So we've had that feature for some time actually, and we've expanded it quite a bit lately. I think I'm telling the truth. It is outside premium, so anyone can use it, I think, right now. But yeah, it's become pretty decent, I will say. So I've put all my wines in the app and so on, and it works pretty well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, try it. It's simple, but it's simple, but it works.
Okay, so what does it do? You scan the wines that you have in your collection.
Yeah, and then
you have the database.
Yeah, say how many bottles, and when you drink, you can check in and out.
Okay, I see. And does it show maybe the drinking window or some data on the
wine? Totally. And that's another thing we added recently, by the way. That's only in the premium. It's the new drinking window that we added, and it's the only drinking window in the world that's 100% based on data, because we have so much data about when people drink and when people stop drinking. And you should check it out. Is really try and see some older wines and so on. It's really quite good.
Yeah, that makes sense completely. That's the best way to have this drinking window data, because a lot of info out there is based on just one wine critic's opinion.
100%. Ours is just 100% based on data, and if you have enough people drinking different vintages and so on, the data really doesn't lie.
Yeah, exactly. This is the perfect way. Wow, I'm very excited to check that out. I don't know how I missed this feature. I didn't know about it.
It's in the Wine Insights. It's only part of premium, but it should be there, and we're going to expand it. I've been pushing the team to build something a little bit more it's visual. It's quite simple now, but the data is good. I'd love to see something more visual, but I think they might be working on something there. Who knows?
That sounds good. Yeah, here the data is the most important. I do agree.
Totally.
But yeah, that is going to be exciting. Okay, I would like to talk a little bit more about your other adventures.
Yes.
We talked a lot about Vivino. Now you are involved in multiple more tech companies. You have this fantastic YouTube channel where you share knowledge, which I love, and as I saw from the comments and the community, everybody is very excited, and the way that you present your experiences and these advices on entrepreneurship is very concise and very straight to the point, very unique on YouTube, that I would say, and I'm not trying to just praise you, but
I appreciate it.
This is the truth, that there is no fluff, no clickbait. You explain everything very professionally. So what are you up to right now? How do you split your time between all these projects?
So I've spent a lot of time on Vivino lately. I've been a little bit more active the last year than normally. I'm back in as chairman, and so I've spent a lot of time. Now we got a new CEO in, so I'm helping to get a little bit more time, and so I'm spending quite a bit of time on Raw Startup, which is my YouTube channel. And what I've done now, just about a month ago, I've also added a podcast. So the idea is it's called Founders Weekly. And it's for startup founders to have an hour they can listen to the news, and then we tell some stories. We tell stories you can learn from. And I love the community, and like you say, it's going to be straight talk from me. I'm not going to sell you anything. I just really like doing that. And and we have some amazing guests on. We had a guy on last week that was talking about what it was like to be on Shark Tank in the US. We had someone on who'd been on Y Combinator and didn't manage to raise money after. And so we were trying to get some guests on as well as telling the news. It's like an hour every week. So it's a lot of fun. And I spend a lot of time on it, probably too much, but I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And I think that you shouldn't feel bad for spending too much time on it, because I can see that this is going to be great. What are your goals?
Feels like it's appreciated too. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your goals with it? Do you have like some expectations or some?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and I don't have a really good answer to it, honestly. I love doing it. Maybe it will be a business at some point. It's not a business now. But I just really am quite passionate about it and enjoy giving and people coming back to me and saying they enjoy the content and so on. So there's no clear goal right now other than I really enjoy doing it.
I see. Makes sense. Providing value is always, it's
very satisfying, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's satisfying, and it is paying off in some way. Maybe we can't even comprehend it at this point, but good things come out of it.
Exactly. By the way, a side note on that: in the next 24 hours, my biggest video is going to hit 1 million views, which is kind of cool. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's one extra thing to celebrate.
Yes.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, good luck with all your ventures.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for doing this. It was a great conversation, and I think it was very helpful and eye-opening for the viewers. Where should they find you? Where should they follow you?
Sure. Yes. Obviously, they need to download Vino if they haven't done already on their whatever phone they use. But also on YouTube, it's Raw Startup, and for a podcast, it's called Founders Weekly. So check them out.
Great. So you should check all the social medias of Heini. Download Vivino, as you mentioned. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.